Hello, this is Laren with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today we are going to go over building a Duergar Warrior, pretty standard basic character. We're also going to talk about the NPC version and some other things that are related to the Fantasy Grounds Unity platform. So without further ado, I'm going to go in and start building this Duergar Warrior. Doing a little bit of research on these particular guys. They're fairly hardy race of dwarfs. I guess you want to say their classic history was not very pleasant. The way they were portrayed was that they had been captive and under the enslavement of the mind flayers, and the Illithids had experimented on dwarves and created their kind. So they didn't have a very nice start, but that by no means has to be your story for your particular character. If you want to change that narrative, or if you want to build something a little less crazy, you can do that. I kind of appreciate some of the nostalgia of it. I do like Duergar. They've always been interesting to me. I like the fact that they are kind of their own thing and they don't rely on anybody else. And they typically work with the drow and the mind flayers, but they're also at odds with them and sometimes each other, depending on the clans and such. So I'm going to use the DnD5e character wizard. The wizard is pretty well done. I mean, it needs to be refined and it has some more work to do, but it's enough to where I can actually build this character. I'm going to bring it up to level 3 so that way I can have the archetype. The other thing you want to make sure of is before you even start building or bringing up the character wizard, you want to make sure that your modules are loaded. So in my modules area in the library, I have several modules loaded here. Some of these are Rob 2e effects automation. There's a couple map modules in here. A couple I wanted to mention, I'll put these in the links for an affiliate link, but these are applied in Aggregate Spelunking guide. And then there's the Survivalist guide to Spelunking. Those would be very valuable for an Underdark campaign if you're going to run something like something underground, because it gets into mining and some of the hazards that you might run across in a campaign. And then I also picked up these fantastic terrain modules that this is from Team 2e. What they've done is they've converted these over, but it goes into this terrain and how to scale it and all these different things so that you can get into creating a better experience and have more rules and such for different types of terrain. So you might have fumes and gases and all kinds of interesting things, temperature swings, and so there's all kinds of elements to play, and this definitely helps the exploration part of the DnD5e rule set, which I think is left out quite a bit. I think a lot of us fast travel and we kind of skip over the landscape to get to the story. But if you want to really truly build an experience, add a couple of those elements in as you're playing, so it's not always combat or not always role playing or making stuff up. You can actually have some rules to help you along the way. So at any rate, I got all these character creation books loaded just in case. I have Monsters of the Multiverse loaded. I believe the Duergar are in there, and they were in other modules as well. The NPC came from Dungeons of the Mad Mage, I believe, and I put him on the combat tracker because I want to take a look at some things later. So let's build this character. So we have the standard array right now: 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. So we can do a point buy. Let's just do the point buy today. Usually I will just hand enter them, or I will use a standard array, but I want to do the point buy. So we have 27 points total. This is a warrior, so I'm going to start off with at least a 14 there. I'm just going to make the dex a flat, just an 11 maybe. Con, I might bring that up to 12 or 13, because I know that dwarves generally get a good decent con. Depending on the story and the rule set they're using, but traditionally they get more constitution. With all the rule changes coming out, that may not be true. I'm going to give them a 9 intelligence, actually probably just 10. wisdom of 9. Well, maybe 10 there. And then charisma, I'll leave it at 8. So that's a fairly balanced character. Let's go with one more con point, and that should take care of that. Yeah, so maybe give one more point of wisdom. I think that's fair. Start off with that. And I got 7 more points to spend, so maybe I will go with the 15 there. One more point of wisdom, 1 point of charisma, and then there's con, and then I went up to dex. So there we go. So 15, 12, 14, 10, 12, and 9. Depending on how I build this character, that will be the final choices. But so I want to go ahead and put in, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and put in the race, which is the next box over in the actual character build, and the character wizard, whatever you want to call this. I call it character builder. So here are all the races that I've selected. So if you decide to load a book at this point and try to load it in, you may not show up here. So that's what I was saying in the beginning. Make sure that you have all of your things loaded first. So they have Dwarf here, but I want to see if they have the Duergar. Yeah, so it's loaded as a separate entry. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And it automatically will pull in the base parts of a Duergar because of the way that Fantasy Grounds has changed recently. So I get to increase 2 or 1, or I get to do the Tasha's where I get to put a 1 on 1 and 3. So I'm going to do the Tasha's method actually. I'm going to add 1 to con. I'm going to add 1 to strength and maybe intelligence. There we go. Now I get to speak a language, so their language that they have now is common, so I definitely want Dwarvish. It makes sense. Could have picked Undercommon. Let's take a look at that. So if you want to go back and change something, you just click on the category. I'm going to actually go with the Undercommon instead of Dwarf. There we go. Common and Undercommon. Yeah, that doesn't jive very well. I think Dwarven is going to be the... We'll just add that later. So now we have the class, which is going to be the next step. And we're going to go with a fighter build. Yep, we'll do a fighter. And then we're going to pick 2 of the class-based skill proficiencies. So I definitely want athletics, maybe survival, intimidation might be another one. That's interesting. I think I'm going to go with intimidation because I think I can pick up survival from the background easier, so that's why I did it that way. And as you can see, this is starting to stack up over here in the preview window. So I have a 16 strength, 12 dex, 15 con, 11 intelligence, 12 wisdom, 9 charisma. That's not too bad. And then all my proficiencies are listed here, the traits, so you kind of have an idea of how it's looking. Is you want to get all this sorted out before you hit the commit button, because once you save this, it's hard to go back and fix it. You might as well just start over. So this allows you to mix and match until you got a good feel for what you're doing, and then go ahead and hit commit. When you used to do the old drag and drop method, you were kind of committing as you go. So each time you drag over a class or a race or a background, it was adding it then and there. In this case, it kind of holds it in a bucket until you're ready, and then you hit commit. So that's cool. So I got that. So we're going to go to the background. I think I was going to go with Clan Crafter or maybe Far Traveler or Outlander or something like that. But being that he's a dwarf, I kind of want to have something themed around his backstory. So maybe he's an archaeologist. That'd be interesting. Be a criminal. It's too cliche. Folk hero, gladiator would be kind of cool. Yep, you know, I'm going to make him a clan crafter, so let's see what he gets from that. So he gets history and insight, which is kind of interesting. And now I get to pick another language, so this is where I'm going to pick Undercommon. Or, yeah, Undercommon is coming from the background. And then I get to pick a tool proficiency. So he might be... I don't want to make him a typical... I'm going to make him a jeweler, something like that. Maybe he's more into the jewel part of things. Yeah, I'm going to make him a jeweler for a profession. I was going to make him, you know, like a smith or something. That's so cliche. Oh, miner's tools. There we go. That's what I want. So he's going to have the miner's tools proficiency. And as you can see, as I go, all of these things are being checked off. And then if I hit inventory, I can award him or give him his first set of inventory, just in case. So I want to get him a warhammer, more than likely, or maybe a flail. Would kind of. Yeah, I'm gonna get him a flail. That's more interesting than just a warhammer. But a warhammer has the ability to use two hands, so I probably use that instead. You get chainmail and leather for your class choice 1. I'm trying to think, would he use chainmail or leather? Probably chainmail because he's a warrior type. And then for part 3, I might, or class choice 3, I might give him an adamantium pick. That seems to be pretty hefty. Or a war pick. I'm gonna get him an adamantium war pick because that makes kind of sense. Like it's kind of special, a lot more hard and durable. And then his class choice, he can get a Dungeoneer's pack or Explorer's pack. So I'm definitely gonna do Dungeoneer's pack. Background choice 2 for tools. I think, let's see, I'm gonna get him. I already got miner's tools, so let's go ahead and give him the equipment for it. So miner's tools, so that way he has the actual materials and not just the proficiency. That should be good. So there's all his choices. You can mix and match these until you're happy with your combination, but if you look on the list over here, it kind of gives you an idea of how this character is stacking up. I'm going to click on the Feats button, and once I do that, it's going to check to see if I qualify for any feats. In this case, I don't. So I'm going to hit commit, and once I do that, I'm pretty much committed to the character. It'll save it and bring up the regular character sheet. So I want to go back over this. So the stats, yeah, it looks pretty good. Race, yep, that's all set. Class is set. Inventory is set. You can reset it if you don't like it, and then you can also purchase equipment with your starting gold. Now I'm going to hit commit. And once I do that, this character is pretty much a done deal as far as the starting first level. I'm going to give this individual some sort of portrait photo. So if you're the player, you can click on portrait, and if you have access to your own custom-made portraits, or perhaps your GM has some to share with you, or maybe you have your own, you can select them from here, but they have to be in the correct folders. So I want to go with, that was Fizbin's. There's Multiverse. There we go. I'm going to go with Monsters of the Multiverse, see what it's in there. I think the Duergar are in there. I haven't looked in a while, but yeah, here's a Duergar Soul Blade. Oh, heck yeah. These are cool. I'll use that one. Alright, so there's his picture. And once you level up, when it's just time to level up, then you and your GM can come in here and start figuring out how you want to do it. But the Warhammer can be used one or two-handed. And let's see, this also has adamantium property, which is cool. It's 1d8 piercing, so that's nice. And I'll use the Warhammer two-handed primarily, because I don't know if he has a shield or not. I'll have to look in his inventory. Does he have a shield? No. So I could give him a shield, but that would also mean he can only use his hammer one-handed. So maybe I'll refrain from that for now. But in his inventory, you can basically put things in location where you want to, based on the container. So I have a pouch, which I'm going to put the gemstone in there. That's one of the things he got from his background, I think. And then most everything else I'll probably end up putting in the backpack. So for instance, he has torches. They don't really need torches, but they probably would use them to read things if they had to read any scrolls or writing. Chainmail is worn. The chisel will be in the backpack. It's got 2 sets of traveler's clothing. I'm going to delete one of those by right-clicking on it. And put that in the backpack, because he's kind of in his mining gear. He has a crowbar. He has a hammer. So these are all going to go in his mining kit. There's backpack, miner's tools. There's the pitons or pitons, whatever you want to call them, pitons. So there's that. And his food, he's got 10 days worth of food. So I'll put that in the backpack. The rope is just going to be kind of coiled up on his backpack. Tinderbox I'll put in a pouch. We don't want to get that wet. And backpack for the water skin. So there we go. So that is all of his gear kind of organized here. He's got a gemstone worth 10 gold he can cash in if he needs to. And they're all kind of located so that they can be nested together. I think I'm just going to make this is going to be a male. He's going to look like he's in his probably like 30s. He's probably much older than that. I don't think he's more than 4'1" in height. He probably weighs 220 pounds soaking wet. And alignment, it doesn't really matter that much. I'm just going to make him neutral right now. You could be chaotic neutral or something like that, but gotta make sure I spell it correctly too. There's neutral. I haven't thought about his deity yet, but it's definitely going to be one of the Underdark ones. Probably, you know, Avathor or whatever the one's name is, their main god. We'll have to see. But this guy goes around, I believe, and he's a miner as his profession. And he looks for big gemstones, so that's kind of his thing. He's looking for a big, huge onyx gemstone. And then he has a little sidekick, probably. It's a little gnome, little greedy, deep gnome that's actually kind of evil. That kind of just got kicked out of his community for being a little punk. All right, so that is that. So now what we're going to do is level this character up. So when it comes time to leveling up, you'll talk to your GM about it. Click on this magnifying glass on the right of fighter, and you'll click this level up button, and it'll bring you back to the character wizard. You use this up arrow to go to level 2, and then you click on Feats. It doesn't have any to qualify yet, and you go ahead and hit commit. And anything that was associated with that level will be added. So if you go to your abilities tab, you'll notice that all these different things are starting to stack up here. So we'll see what happens, but it looks like you have all these different things that are starting to add up on here. So that's good. And now we'll do that one more time. So we're going to go to the magnifying glass. We're going to go to level up. It's going to go back to the character wizard, but this time I'm going to have to pick a specialization. So now that I've done that, I got to pick out which one I want. I'm thinking about doing a Rune Knight. Let's take a look at that. Oh yeah, well, it's usually giants that have this, but yeah, I think I'm just going to go with the Psy Warrior. That kind of would make sense too. No, I might do that, because this is different. I haven't done this, but you're dedicated to wielding the mind's power as both weapon and shield. That's really cool, actually. For this type of character, being that they have psionic tendencies, I'm going to go with the Psy Warrior. I've never built one of those, so that looks really cool. All right, so once we do that, then I'm going to click on Feats. There are no feats that we qualify for yet, so we'll just hit commit, and that puts the character up to 3rd level. And then if you go through your tabs, everything that comes with your class should already be added. So we have athletics, history, insight, intimidation. I got to add the mining kit or the miner's tools. So when we use them, we'll get to add our proficiency bonus plus our whatever stat it's related to. I'm going to go with con. I think that makes sense, to have it based on constitution for stamina or wisdom. Yeah, let's go with wisdom. Okay, so that's that. So I added the miner's tools as just a way to roll in case you're doing some crafting or actual mining, which may come in handy, especially for tasks that you're doing outside of the game, so downtime activities. And let's go to the abilities tab. So all these things have been added here, which is kind of cool. Yep. Yeah, action surge, fighting style. So I haven't chose a fighting style yet, but it's definitely not archery. Defense, maybe. Dueling, when you're wielding a melee weapon in one hand and no other weapons, you gain a +2. I might do that. Great weapon fighting, protection, 2 weapon. Yeah, I think I'm going to do the dueling, but I want to look at the other option because that's a kind of my default if I don't know what to do. Blind fighting, but he's already kind of has that. Interception, superior technique, throw weapon fighting, unarmed fighting. That might come in handy. But anyways, I'll just leave it at dueling. Okay, so all that stuff's been added. Got all our equipment. We haven't finished the notes out yet. Here's the log for Adventures League. And here's our actions tab. So right now it is in the mode of standard and group. If I want to, I can change this over to where it's going to add it as for preparation mode. If you wanted to set up your second wind and those sort of things. So it says you gained this feature when you finish a short or long rest. It's already set to daily, so I wanted to change that to rest. That's when it replenishes. Fighting style, we picked dueling, so I think that one's already set up. Yeah, that one's already set up. And then action surge. How many of those do we get? You gain this feature when you short or long rest. Starting at 17th level, you can use it twice. We'll only get once, and then this one's rest as well. So rest on the action surge. Second wind is also rest. So both of those are rest. We have a crowbar and a torch as an item. We have these standard actions here. Now, I want to take a look to see if there's any other psionic abilities, because I wanted to look at that. Now I will later. Let's see. So there's that. Okay. So I want to open up the character options, and I'm going to go to spells. And then I want to make sure that I grab and filter out this Rob 2e coding effect. So I want to go to the, let's see, we got racial traits here. And let's go ahead and add a group here for the trait. So we'll just say Duergar traits. Now, mind you, this is all going to change. So I'm kind of building this through the traditional way, but these might all just become like options and not just given to you. So if I go to Duergar, let's see, psionic fortitude. You have advantage on saving throws you make to avoid or end charmed or stunned condition on yourself. So that's definitely something I want to add. Let's see, what else do we have here? They do have a Dwarven resilience. So add that. And then there was a thing where you had the, well, at least there used to be a sunlight sensitivity. Let me type it in. Yeah, dwarf sunlight sensitivity. So this is a kind of a drawback that you can have if you're in the direct sun. So that's essentially all the racial stuff, and these are from the Rob 2e effects automation stuff, the coding. So that's where these come from. They're not normally part of the base core rules, or kind of a community add-on. So these are just things that you could. A lot of these are notes or reminders. They don't necessarily do anything mechanically. Some of them do, some don't. Just depends on what they're written for. Let's see. So we have that, and now I want to look at the class features. So I want to make sure I have all the fighter actions. So if I go to, let's see, class features, there we go. So I want to go to the, what was that? Fighter. Okay, so there are lots of fighting stuff in here. So there's, let me get rid of this one. I don't like the way it's labeled. Dueling. Okay, and then there was a couple other things that I was considering. Let's see. So creature type, Duergar, Dwarven Resilience. Duergar Magic. So at 3rd level, you can cast Enlarge and Reduce. So we need to add that. Before I do that, though, let's see. Let's get this off of the category and just type it in. I want to go to the spells. It's essentially what this is. Enlarge and Reduce. Okay, so we're going to add this to the Duergar traits. And what it says here is that do this on yourself as a trait, which is set up as self. Starting at 5th level, you can also do invisibility. Once you cast all of these spells, you can't cast that spell again until you finish a long rest. You can also cast these spells using spell slots that you have for appropriate levels. Okay, so what I'm going to do is set this up under preparation. So this particular one would be once daily. So we can keep track of how many times we've used it. So after a long rest, we get to read that. And I need to base it off of something. So it's saying intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. I'm going to go with wisdom. So I'm going to change the metadata to wisdom. And that's done with this little magnifying glass next on this actual bar here where the header is. So that changes the metadata to look at wisdom as the spellcasting trait. That's how you change it if you need to. Sometimes you'll get traits that differ from your spellcasting if you're like a spellcaster, so you'll have to set it up differently. But I think a lot of this is going to change once the new 1 D&D comes out. Let's see, the next thing. Okay, so that was the Duergar stuff. So then we have the Sonic Fortitude, Dwarven Resilience. Let's see what else we have here on the abilities. There's a maneuver option, which I didn't take that. So if you have access to maneuvers, you can choose from these. So ambush, bait and switch. No, I'm rid of that. I don't need that. I don't need the optional fighting style, so I went ahead and got rid of that. Psionic power. So this is so the size of your psionic energy dice increases at 5th. So in addition, a bonus action, you gain 1. So some of these things require. See, there's a D6. When you reach a certain level, see, protect the power. Okay, so there's some things that I have to look at later, but a lot of these look like you don't get much of it until you get a little bit higher level. So that's fine. Gain all your psionic energy, some of your points. So as you harbor psionic energy within yourself, the energy is represented by your psionic energy dice, which are each a d6. You have a number of these dice equal to twice your proficiency bonus. So his proficiency bonus is 2. So he gets 4 of these points. So I'm going to set that up in in this dwarven area under Duergar traits. We're going to call this psionic power. And it's just going to be a way to track the points. And then I'm going to put a D6 in parentheses so I remember. And some of these are like bonus actions and such, but basically I'm going to put a number here. So he gets 4 of those. And then some of the powers take more and some powers take others. Yeah, so a lot of these do an intelligence modifier, so I'm glad I didn't skimp out on that too much. There's your telekinetic stuff, so that's kind of cool. Alright, so that takes care of some of the, at least tracking the ability, and then when you come up here, there's no description here. So what I would do, if you don't already have this, is put this here, but I want to look on the spells and see if it's been done already. I want to go to everything. So feat, there's a Duergar, psionic fortitude, we already did that. Psionic power. Yeah, see, these are already coded, so that's good. So telekinetic movement, put that on here. Telekinetic strike and a protective shield. That's cool. Okay, so we have all the features, and I just put these on here so that we can keep track of them, and then we'll use these psionic points to keep track of how many of the dice rolls that you use. So that's cool. So there we go. So there's that. Fighter, psionic power die regain. Psi warrior feature, yeah. So we need to put that on there too. All right, so that takes care of that. So that is essentially our player character, Duergar, with a psionic warrior race or archetype, which is really cool. And when you're done putting a character together, if you think everything's good, then your GM will put the character on the combat tracker. And then we have a Duergar NPC here I wanted to mention. These are going to be kind of standard. They're not going to have as much of that fancy automation, but if you wanted to, you can make a copy and unlock these and change some of this up so that it's not as generic as you'd get from the source books. This has the typical abilities. It's a little bit harder to build an NPC to be as robust or as detailed as a character. They don't typically have all the same features. And there are some things like lair actions and stuff that PCs don't have. So you just remember, if you're using an NPC, they're not going to generally be as complex as a character. If you really need something that complex, like a boss or some kind of, commander, or maybe the big bad evil guy, I would just make a character, to be honest, and just forego using an NPC, because they're really not going to give you all of the different options that you're going to want to have during gameplay. They have some of them, but not all of them. I mean, you could add things to it and make this a little bit more robust, but generally speaking, I think it's easier just to build a fancy character. So that's essentially the Duergar. They're, like I said, they're not going to have, like, if you wanted a Duergar that has the psi ability warrior type, you're going to have to do a lot of finagling, changing, adding features. Like, you'd have to add it already has a resilience, and it has sunlight sensitivity. It doesn't have the psionic fortitude, but you could add this in if you wanted to. So you could go in and you'd have advantage against charmed or stun condition. So you can add that to this. If it's worded correctly, it might work out. So if I was going to add that to this character under traits, I would click this plus button. I'd call this psionic fortitude, I guess. And then you could copy and paste the text if you can unlock it. and just Control copy and Control V in there, and then you just lock this up, and then you would have this note here, but it still doesn't parse or necessarily give you any automation. You're going to have to add that yourself, and all this is essentially adding advantage to your save. So you would just click on advantage before you roll your save. So that there's some things that just aren't worth putting on there, but they are good for memorizing or knowing what they have, so you don't have to memorize everything. But nonetheless, that's something you can do if you really wanted to. But I'm going to go ahead and take this off because you don't really need it. Okay, so I just added it, took that thing I just added on there, that trait. Okay, so now that we have both of these here, normally I would stick this character sheet on here. The only thing I haven't done is the background. I'm not going to worry about that. Then I want to change the group down here to combat and action. So this is what the character will look like when you play. So now if you have a map, which I do, so this is a kind of an underdark or underground dungeon that has a crossroads, and then in the crossroads there's lava that's kind of breaking through this barrier here. I'm going to go ahead and grab these guys here. They're allies. One guy is just kind of like a bodyguard following along. I'm going to add these to the map, and once you do that, you'll notice that they are able to see because they have a really good dark vision. Yeah, they have dark vision 120 feet. So it's almost like it's not dark in here at all. But if I go and unlock the map and turn this to the player vision, that's what it looks like. Because they have dark vision, so they're kind of, they're essentially not able to see like a regular person. They can see the dark vision, it's black and white color. So if I take these guys off, let's see, delete all tokens. So this is what it looks like if you have normal vision. So if you don't have any light source, or you don't have anything like the magic items or light or torch, that's essentially what that looks like. But these guys have the they basically have this dark vision on their character sheet. So he has it in here, and that's one of the traits on the NPC. So I take this, drag it on there, and that's what they see. So that's pretty cool. So they're ready to go. They'll work. If you had to move these guys around, you can use the arrow keys if you're a player to move these if you want. You can move kind of diagonally if you hit both buttons at the same time, the down and the side arrow. There we go. All right. So anyways, that's pretty much it. I don't want to go too much longer because I don't want to bore everybody, get them all up in arms about how long the video is. But if you guys have any questions, you can always go back and look at the video. Anything I used during this video, I mentioned in the actual, except for I didn't add the Rob 2e coding effects yet. I'll do that. But this essentially is the just like a practice character build. And the focus of this was the Duergar, is they seem to be a pretty hardy race. When you really think about it, their life probably isn't that great if they are in the classic world that how they're casted in here. So if you go to let's see, I want to bring up my campaign and go to the images, and then we have an uncategorized area. So this is what we call this: walk a mile in the Underdark as a Duergar. So they have to be around toxic fumes and gases, dangerous creatures, treacherous terrain, extreme heat and radiation. So they're a pretty hardy race. And they're also affiliated with the sometimes the Drow, but they're also kind of under the thumb of the Illithids, the Mind Flayers. So it's kind of not a very good lifestyle, to be honest. But this is kind of what I was thinking about when I was creating this, is how their backstory would fit, and also the type of character I'd build. So this guy would be kind of like a hero, amongst them. He's not standard, he's got some different qualities to him. So he'd be kind of like one of their elite warriors, or probably one of their heroes. And then as far as content goes, when I built the character, I used the Monsters of the Multiverse, and then I used like Rob 2E's coding effects package. And then the modules, you can see I have all those loaded. And then, like I said, you have the Spelunking Survivalist guide, which is in the description as well. And this has all of the environments. It has, how they talk about the underworld, which is the Underdark. They talk about chases in here. There's different sorts of mapping the underworld, like how that would work. There's some survival rules. So there's all kinds of interesting playthings in here that would help you run a campaign in the Underdark. This is the one that was put out by AEW Games and Douglas Niles, so it's a really good book. And there's an addendum one, or like an additional one, the Aggregate, which is essentially a whole bunch of tables and parcels and that sort of thing. So anyways, I'll put that in the description.